Hi, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Winnipeg Sports Weekly podcast. My name is Scott Knight.
I'm Victor Selby.
And we are pleased to have you back. It has been a very busy week in Winnipeg sports. Not always for the better, but lots of news this week. We're looking forward to getting started, and having a discussion. How are you doing, Vic?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Pretty good. I think we could probably step right into it by saying I definitely did not have a fantastic Thursday night last week.
No.
Yeah, Winnipeg Blue Bombers falling in the home opener and the Grey Cup rematch to the Montreal Alouettes 27-12. And I don't think there's really any way to sugarcoat it. That might have been one of the worst performances I've ever seen from such a talented Bomber team. Definitely not the worst performance I've seen overall, but they got so many guys that you expect to perform and really just fell flat at a lot of points. What do you think went wrong?
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously there's definitely some issues with the defense. I know a lot of people have been talking about it. Obviously missing some key players like Adam Big Hill, but I think honestly, the biggest problem for sure was the offense. It was just
Absolutely.
For a Bomber offense that is has been so potent for so many years, I feel like we were all expecting to put points on the board against anybody really, even the much vaunted Montreal defense, but nonetheless, I just feel like we really struggled to really get anything going pretty much the whole game offensively, and I think that was our undoing.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I know it's obviously you're never going to expect perfection out of the first game week, but Montreal, they came out, they looked relatively organized. They definitely made some mistakes, but they looked overall very fluid. They looked like a good team out of the gates, and the Bombers, especially in that first half, just really lacked any sort of offensive threat. You either had Caleros just missing some passes that you expect a guy like him to make, or you at times just had receivers who were just missing catches that were kind of placed right in the hands of the guys you seem to have. It was always one or the other. And then they did have a few solid connections still there in that first half where you saw them kind of look like you expect, but unfortunately nothing consistent enough to really get down the field and get any chances, right? So
yeah, I think that it showed that the Bombers didn't have most of their, significant offensive players playing in the preseason. I think that was something that we all had some concerns over. Like, is that really a good idea? And I think the rust really showed. Zach Caleros especially. Like, you don't see him underthrow or overthrow guys as often as he did on Thursday night. It was a tough one for me. It was also my birthday on Thursday as well.
Happy belated.
Thank you, sir. But yeah, we still had a great time. Went down Princess Auto Stadium. The whole Bomber game day experience is always fantastic. But the on-field product was this was definitely a tough one, I will say. And honestly, this is what being a Bomber fan has felt like most of my life, but it's not what it's felt like the last 4 or 5 years.
It's not an experience I really miss, to be honest.
No.
I know the feeling all too well from so many different Winnipeg sports teams. I mean, the Jets, since their inception or since their re-arrival back in Winnipeg, have had some pretty brutal years where you kind of come to expect them to be playing at a below average. But when you got a team that's so full of talent like we do with the Bombers, it's been many years since you've seen a performance that stale and really disappointing, because we spent most of the last podcast talking about how fantastic we think the Bombers are going to be, and they just came out and dropped a pretty pathetic performance, unfortunately. But if there is any good news, I think you'll agree with me. In the third quarter, the offense did start to click a little bit more. They did look like they were really threatening, kind of knocking at the door there on a few different occasions. The only downside beyond that was, unfortunately, they couldn't seem to close out a drive with anything of, really any value, whether it's, somebody fumbling the ball, Caleros, really bad interception towards double coverage in the end zone there. They definitely looked better. They just couldn't string enough together to actually, get a score. And Castillo with the worst game I've ever seen him play. Just purely because you don't expect a guy like that.
Shit footballs or not, it was a tough one for Sergio for sure.
Yeah. One for 3 and a missed convert is below standard for anybody. But it reminded me of the Legio days, unfortunately, which were not long ago, where Yeah, you don't expect a guy with that level of consistency to come out and perform like that, especially when he did play in the preseason and he looked like himself. He really didn't look bad at all. But if he's going to get it out of the way, I'd rather it be during a performance like that where the score isn't really affected too greatly anyways. We're going to lose anyways. It just looks a little bit worse when he misses in this week, right? So...
Yeah, for sure. I'm not concerned about the Bomber offense at all.
No, me neither.
They're going to score points. That's not my concern. Definitely some concern with health though. Kenny Lawler breaking his hand. O'Shea was, he definitely didn't want to give us too much information about how long he's going to be out for, but it does seem like at the minimum it's going to be a couple of weeks, probably a month there. Oliveira clearly did not look himself to me. He definitely wasn't the game-changing player he was last year, and I think it's pretty clearly because of the injuries. Like, this guy had 2 or 3 practices at most under his belt before this game.
Absolutely,
He didn't look ready, and he is supposed to play this week. Another Thursday game in Ottawa. Hopefully he plays, and hopefully he's able to go 100% or at least a little closer to it. But the injuries I think are definitely pretty scary right now.
Absolutely, yeah, and you could tell right from the start something was a little bit off with Oliveira as well. He wasn't really looking, quite like himself. Obviously, he's not the most explosive player to begin with. He's not going to beat you with speed 99% of the time, but he wasn't grabbing those extra yards like you're used to seeing. Very much, he's developed that Andrew Harris trait of always being able to reach for the extra 2 or 3 yards on any given play, but it wasn't there. And I mean, do give credit to Montreal's defense because they did play a very, very solid game overall, limiting a lot of the runs up the middle. Wasn't a fan of the play calling for the most part as well. I think the coaches, overall had a pretty weak showing in terms of our play calling because, on those like 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5 plays, you got to be putting the ball in the air. You got to take a chance every now and then because we just kind of settled, I found, for too many runs up the middle. And you can't expect a guy like Oliveira to go out and force him to get 4 or 5 yards on those second down. It's not really fair to expect that of him. And we just, for some reason, continually tried running it right up the middle every single time when I think pretty much anybody in the stadium could have told you what was coming next. And they still tried running it up in the same spot and obviously not going to succeed when everybody knows what you're planning, right?
Especially a loaded Montreal defense like that, especially up the middle. Their linebacking group, fantastic, probably the best in the CFL.
I would think so.
Yeah, I'm probably a little worse now that Stubelfield for them tore his ACL in that game against us. He's out for the season. They just confirmed that today. Tough loss for Montreal, but nonetheless, like absolutely loaded defense, and it's tough. You can't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. It was a tough one basically for all parties, but I think I'm still feeling pretty optimistic going into Game 2 against Ottawa.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're going to have a bad game, at least it's good that it happened against a team that was going to be difficult to beat anyways.
100%.
Even if they play a good game, there's no guarantee we come out of that on the right side. If we play 100%, do I think we beat the Alouettes? Absolutely. I truly think we do, but anything short of a near perfect game, I think they've definitely got a shot. So if we're going to have a bad game, it sucks that it's got to be at home in the Grey Cup rematch, but I'd rather drop a game like this than next week going into Ottawa where the Bombers have a real chance to bounce back, look strong against objectively pretty weak-looking Ottawa team, at least on paper.
Yeah, I haven't seen them play yet, but
they haven't seen them play, but just purely based on where they're kind of expected to be, early on statistically, this should be the Bombers' chance to come bounce back, and get a win under their belt. And can't take these guys lightly though, because obviously with a performance like they had in the first week, if they come out like that against Ottawa, they're gonna get torn apart.
They beat us last year in Ottawa too.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. So there's oh man, I remember that. I don't know,
overtime.
That was brutal.
That was a hard one. Dustin Crum, when
Crum,
he was gonna be the guy for Ottawa.
Well, and it's
now it's our guy.
Now it's Drew Brown, which is gonna be. I'm excited for Drew. I really am. I want to see him do well. I hope he throws for 6 picks this upcoming week. But after that, 100%. I hope he has a fantastic season.
Yep.
But it'd be really nice if he could, take it easy on us this next one. Let us get back into a groove. But yeah, like as you had said, also, I'm not concerned. There's no reason to, be too alarmed yet. Disappointing for sure, but I think they've absolutely still got the tools that are necessary. And let's just. Got to get our guys healthy, make sure everybody's feeling 100%, make sure everybody's on the same page. and organized going back out there. So
100%. Well, yeah. I think on to the big news of the day today, the Sea Bears with another blockbuster signing, Justin Wright Foreman, who previously played for the Saskatchewan Rattlers last year, runner-up to the CEBL MVP award behind our very own Teddy Allen, won the scoring title, 29 points per game, NBA draft pick, guy who's dominated all over the world. What a signing for the Sea Bears.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, and a little bit concerned at the start of the season, the Sea Bears looking a little disorganized, still getting some good results, obviously, early on, but definitely not playing quite at the level you probably expected, given the depth of this roster. But an addition like that, it's just to say that the Sea Bears don't have the personnel to take it all this year would be, I think, naive. But let's see how they can go out and execute. Obviously, right? That comes down to. That's what it all comes down to at the end of the day. They can have all the personnel they want, but if they don't go out there and put a good product on the floor, you're still going to get beaten by anybody, right?
Yeah, and I think this is a Sea Bears team with absolutely massive expectations at this point. Obviously, they made some of the biggest signings over the summer with JOJ, Byron Mullins, Darius Days. Like, those are all big-name players who we knew were going to be significant contributors in CEBL. I think a lot of fans already thought we had the best team before this signing happened, and obviously it has not been the start to the season you want. 3-3, on paper it looks okay, but I would argue with the amount of talent available on this Sea Bears team, there's really no reason to be 3-3. We should be a lot better than that. Darius Days has missed the last few games. He's actually doing NBA workouts right now, so that's where I know a few fans have been asking kind of where he's been. And that's what's up with him. He's hopefully going to be returning soon, providing he doesn't get signed in the NBA.
Yeah.
Obviously, he does have some experience, in the NBA system, in the G League. So hopefully he's back for the rest of the season. But for now, I think that there's some real on-court questions with how this team is going to look. We've already been playing with three guards, with Alex Campbell kind of sliding down to play the three for a lot of the season so far. I would imagine now that we have Justin Wright Foreman, he's obviously going to be starting. He's now probably going to be our second leading scorer for the remainder of the year. It's going to be interesting to see how they do that, who moves to the bench. I would assume it's Alex Campbell, given how good Jared Okobami-Jackson has been so far this season. Mm-hmm. He has kind of been a shining light, one of the only real shining lights on this team so far, other than Teddy Allen. So it's going to be interesting to see how it looks.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the Sea Bears from just a perspective of who you're putting on the floor are in a very interesting position where they have a lot of, I'm not going to say young and unproven, because obviously a lot of new signings, we'll say, who are very, very tall, very long, and can obviously play at a very, very high level, but now also are just overflowing with talented guards that obviously are going to want to get lots of minutes as well. So you're in a very weird spot from a rotation perspective where on a nightly basis, you really got to wonder who's getting on the floor and for how many minutes, because all of these guys have expectations for how much they want to play. A lot of them deserve a good chunk of minutes, but it's almost weird to say having too much talent. You're really in a spot where you got a lot of guys who are going to want a lot of playing time, and there's not that much to go around, right?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how it really looks, because I think that one of the major concerns fans have had so far this season with the Sea Bears is just a lack of kind of what looks like a lack of a plan offensively. It's been very your turn, my turn between Teddy Allen and kind of whoever else is on the floor with him, whether it's Mason Boissier or JOJ. It's kind of like, who's gonna run the play this time, and there hasn't been a ton of working off each other and just really just playing off each other. There hasn't been a lot of that, and kind of reminiscent of the kind of early struggles that Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic had with the Dallas Mavericks. A lot of people are making that comparison today with Justin Wright Foreman signing. But obviously that took a while to figure out. They didn't make the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
From doing that, and it their offense was kind of always dynamite, but I would expect that we definitely could see some struggles, especially now throwing another super ball dominant guy into the mix. It's going to be interesting to see how it looks, and can they avoid it just being your turn, my turn?
Yeah, absolutely, because that's not at all how you want your offense to play out. And even until this point in the season, it has looked a bit disjointed at times, right? You do have a lot of kind of ISO offense where, I mean, Teddy knows that he can go get a bucket pretty much whenever he wants. But you really don't want your offense to flow around that one thing, because they're going to find a way to put a stop to him eventually, right? Whether it's putting two guys on him or something else. And you have to be able to move the ball effectively. You have to have a good game plan that everybody's on the same page for. And now that you have a second, elite scorer on the team, that's going to become an even bigger concern. So obviously it's a good problem to have, but it definitely is something to look out for as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting. They do have a game this Thursday. Obviously, the Bombers do as well. Really annoying how the scheduling has worked out so far. A lot of Sea Bears games on the same day as Bomber ones. Sucks for us. Trying to cover it on, of course, on Winnipeg Sports Weekly on Instagram. It's been pretty difficult to kind of watch both games and all that, do the final scores and keep fans updated. So yeah, figure it out. CBL, please help us out next year. But yeah, no, we play again Thursday against the 5-1 Vancouver Bandits. Kind of a surprise story in the league this year. They weren't expected to be particularly good, and obviously they have been so far. So a big test for the Sea Bears, who have already said that Wright Foreman is playing this weekend. I'm not sure if they meant that Thursday's game or Sunday's game, but nonetheless, we should get to see the new guy in action.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Very excited. Should be a good show, and looking forward to what they got in the future here for this team. So
for sure. So checking in on a couple more teams here before we get to kind of the big story with the Winnipeg Jets right now. Checking in first with Valor, who lost 2-0 yesterday to Athletic Ottawa at Princess Auto Stadium. Despite the loss, really, really good showing from Valor overall. Ottawa is, for anybody who doesn't know, one of the best teams in the CPL this year. But Valor looked really good in front of a good home crowd too. I unfortunately wasn't there, but I do know some people who were and said the atmosphere was really, really good. The fans were passionate. Actually honoring it was Fury night, honoring the old Winnipeg Fury, who won a few championships back in the day in the Canadian Soccer League. Pretty cool. But yeah, Valor looked pretty good, and considering how bad of a start they had, things are looking up there. And then also to highlight a few players for the Gold Eyes too. Max Murphy hitting streak extended to 18 games. He won the Winnipeg Sports Weekly Winnipeg Athlete of the Week, rather should I say, this week. So he now leads all summer athletes with 2 Athlete of the Week awards so far. He's lighting it up. 18 game hit streak, and then as well Joey Adalevich was named American Association Pitcher of the Week this week. Had an unbelievable week for the Gold Eyes. 0.6 ERA, 22 strikeouts, 2-0. Pretty sensational week for the Gold Eyes, who are they're still 500, but man, we have some real talent on that team.
Absolutely, yeah. Every time that I check in on them, I'll tune in for a couple of innings. It's obviously tough to stay completely up to date with every single game they play.
100 games is tough.
Because 100 games, I mean, the MLB obviously with 100 was 150 in the MLB, 160.
Yeah, 160 something.
160
I think.
something.
Too many games.
Yeah, so even with the Gold Eyes, it is a lot of games. But every time I tune in, it's always exciting baseball to watch. It's always you can tell the Gold Eyes have a very, very solid looking team this year.
Just with stars on it. It's always exciting when you have stars.
Absolutely. Yeah. Here's a curious question for you. Who is your favorite Winnipeg Gold Eye of past? Like we'll say years ago. There is a correct answer here, by the way, just in case you're curious.
Yeah, and I think I know what your correct answer is, and it's mine as well. It's got to be Reggie Abercrombie.
It is, right? Reggie Abercrombie.
It's the man himself. He was here for so long. Like, I feel like I saw him when I was growing up. Like, like when you're, when your school would take you there, like, Gold Eyes tickets during the school day. That was sweet. You would see him, and just a Winnipeg legend. Honestly,
he really is. Yeah, and there was a point there where the Gold Eyes weren't too fantastic, for sure. I mean, that was right after the period in which they were unbelievable.
Really yeah.
But there was a period there in which they were not great, but you could always, enjoy the fact that you could go sit down at Shaw Park and watch Reggie Abercrombie send one over that fence every single night without fail. He is pulling one to right center, and they're just the outfielders got no chance. It's so far gone. He's just a lot of those potholes out there are probably courtesy of a ball that has just been nuked out there from Reggie Abercrombie. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and they've done a great job of honoring him too, and kind of the legacy is left in Winnipeg. I know they did Reggie Abercrombie bobblehead night last season, I think it was. If anybody has one of those, please let us know.
Absolutely.
We would love to add it to the set here. Reggie Abercrombie, what an absolute legend.
He is. Yeah, one of the lesser sung heroes of Winnipeg sports, because the Goldeyes don't always get as much love as they should. But he's I'll never forget him. Growing up, going to Goldeyes games, absolutely has to be my favorite player. He's a big one. And going back to Valor, as you had said, I watched the second half there. Possession-wise, that's really the only issue I see in a lot of Valor's plays. They just can't keep control of the ball. They can't win it back often when they lose it, which is obviously such an important part of the game. I mean, obviously you can have meaningless possession where it doesn't matter, but they're just consistently getting, really, really strong offense played against them, and they're just unable to win the ball back. They get great opportunities and they get good possession downfield, but they're not converting on some of the chances they have. It wasn't a great night in front of goal. I mean, obviously when you don't score, it definitely is not. Yeah. But they had a few looks, just couldn't really finish.
They battled.
It was a good showing, and I feel like they could have definitely deserved more for what they got. But gotta hold more of the ball in general. It's just it's a game that you're gonna struggle to win. I think they had like about 37% possession by the end of the game, and it's tough to come out on top when you have the ball for so little of it. So just a quick note. I only was able to tune in for part of that, but an exciting showing for sure to see them at least getting some good opportunities. They look like they're bouncing back from a tough start to the season. So.
Yeah, for sure. And then kind of moving on to the other massive story of the week, kind of a story we're going to be talking about for, I don't know, at least up until the NHL draft, and who knows if he gets moved then, is Nikolai Ehlers, who David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period, who's done a lot of coverage from the Jets recently. He did recently say that Nikolai Ehlers has no interest in a contract extension in Winnipeg, and it does look like they're going to move on from Nikolai Ehlers this year. Scott, what are your thoughts?
Disappointing, not entirely unexpected, to be honest. A little surprised still, as I think most people were. I will say I do think, and this is a common theme among Winnipeg sports fans, and I do understand the emotions behind this kind of story coming out. Lots of people saying, "Oh, I'm glad he's gone. He hasn't been performing," and I think very reactionary. I understand where it's coming from, but the guy has provided a lot of solid years of hockey to Winnipeg, and
nothing but class the whole time.
No, and he's always been a great, really classy guy. He's always provided a lot for the city, never complained. There's lots of guys who just don't want to come to Winnipeg to play, right? And he's one of those guys who put in the time, never had any problems really, off ice, and it's disappointing to see him go. Am I really truly upset that he's going to be gone? Not entirely. I think it opens the door for some other guys to come in, and obviously the Jets do need to, shake it up a little bit. They've got a strong roster, but clearly something's not quite clicking when you have such a talented roster and are still struggling every time you get to the playoffs. So I wish him nothing but the best. But it's not the end of the world. I understand why he'd want to go see what he's worth somewhere else and see if it pans out better for him. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's it definitely is going to suck to lose Fly here. He's just been here for so long. He is actually my favorite Jets player, just purely because of play style. I love the way he plays, like just being probably the second or third fastest player in the NHL. He's definitely up there.
Oh, absolutely.
With McDavid and McKinnon, and just a guy who I feel has been underappreciated for a long time, but it's no shock he doesn't want to be here. This isn't about not wanting to play in Winnipeg, as it has been for guys like Jacob Trouba and a few other guys over the years. I think this is just a guy who recognizes that he's better than he's been used so far. This is a dude who was like barely in our top 10 for forwards in ice time last season, and I think that even his biggest haters would say that probably isn't acceptable. He's a lot better than that. He's a really skilled player. I think the NHL as a whole is starting to move a little bit more towards the really highly skilled guys like Ehlers, who might not be as big, but if they're really good at hockey, like, do you really care at the end of the day?
Exactly.
And I think that the Jets have been a little resistant to that kind of stuff. I do think that the how big players are has affected the Jets' deployment in recent years. And I think that there's going to be other teams that are definitely going to appreciate Ehlers more. But unfortunately, like, obviously not playing him a ton has hurt his value. And I'm worried that fans are going to be a little unhappy when this isn't a massive blockbuster return. Pagnotta did as well say that Cheveldayoff is believed to be looking for a top 4 defenseman in the market. No shocker there. I think everyone kind of sees them hoping to improve there. There's also been talk about a buyout with Schmidt, or potentially trading Pionk, or one or the other, really. So we'll see. Like, there's going to be a lot to happen, but I think really everyone's reaction is going to be based on the return. Is it going to be a high draft pick? Is it going to be a top 4 defenseman? I don't know. We'll see. But it's I think the outcome of this is kind of going to define the Jets offseason.
Absolutely. And I would be. You said Pionk is an option, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be entirely upset with Pionk being, moved somewhere else as well. Just the playoffs.
He has been the popular trade candidate from Winnipeg fans.
Absolutely, and I think people are too hard on him at times, but some particularly poor showings, especially in the postseason there, where certainly not solely responsible for a lot of the harm that was done in the playoffs, but we need to strengthen that defensive core just in general. We really have some good pieces there, but are we going to be able to make a deep run with the guys we have right now? No, not a chance, in my opinion. We've got a very strong offense and a pretty average defense that's gonna get taken advantage of by the stronger offensive teams in the league, right? So
yeah, I think that's definitely going to be where they're going to strengthen the most. We have a bunch of prospects coming up, really for forwards and defense, and it's hard to know what the Jets' plans are regarding the defense in particular. Like, Brendan Dillon came out recently, is pretty much for sure going to be hitting the free agent market. It's not impossible he comes back to Winnipeg, but it's looking pretty unlikely. Ville Heinola obviously did make the team out of camp, but got injured in the final preseason game. One has to think he's probably in the lineup next year. Who knows, really? And then there's some other guys, like a wild card like Elias Salamonson, the Jets' second-round pick from a few years ago, who was unbelievable in the SHL this year. The organization's really high on him. So there's a lot of different candidates, both internally and externally. It's going to be a new-look Jets team for sure.
Absolutely, and I'm excited to see what they come out with going into the rest of this year. So
for sure, yeah,
absolutely. Do you want to shift to some of our viewer submitted questions that I promised we would go over?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we only have a couple, so I posted on our Instagram a couple days ago to submit a few questions here, see if anybody had anything that they wanted us to discuss here on the podcast.
Yep.
And let me see if I can find it. We will be right back with that. And we are back from that longer than expected delay to figure out exactly how to use Instagram, the primary platform in which we post on.
It's really difficult to view the responses on a story that's expired. That sucks.
Humbling moment. Get on that, Zuckerberg.
Nonetheless, we do have them though. And we have three viewer responses here. For some questions that they want to hear us talk about.
Go for it.
To start off, Braden asks, do the Sea Bears have a realistic chance at the championship? I think we already kind of covered that. I think we both think for sure they have a realistic chance. I think they should be the favorite now. I already had them as the favorite beforehand. I think they should win this championship. I think they're the best team in the league. Really just got to see if they can put it together.
Yeah, on paper, it's a no-doubter. In practice, their odds are obviously, I'd say, still very, very good. You never know what's going to happen throughout the season, but right now it is a great time to be excited for the Sea Bears.
Yep.
I'll keep it short and sweet with that because, I like their odds. I'm not going to say that say that it's anywhere near a lock because it's a very unpredictable year, unpredictable season. We'll have to see what happens, but I'm very excited to see how it pans out because I think they got a great shot at it. So
Yep. And Brandon asks, what do you think the Bombers' final record will be?
All right, we went over that one in the first episode. I'm gonna change my answer.
I'm not shocked. Yeah.
Because I had about I was saying 14-4. That would have been our franchise record. So I was thinking maybe 15.
We're optimistic in episode 1.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 13-5.
Been
Was what I was
a little
probably shooting for. So you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and say 10-8.
Wow.
Maybe,
Okay. Yeah.
Or 11-7, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
An early loss. Disappointing. I do think the injury to Lawler might end up costing us an additional game. We obviously do. We have lots of depth at the receiver spots. Lots of guys who can catch the ball, but none of them quite like Kenny can. So it's gonna be tough to miss him. Hopefully Oliveira remains relatively healthy. Obviously being kind of injured right now at the moment, but hopefully that doesn't transition into anything too much more severe. Because if it does, that could be a really, really difficult spot for us to be in.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to guess, I guess, because of the injuries that we've had recently. But I'm still pretty optimistic. I'm going to say 11-7, 12-6 kind of range. I still think we're going to be an elite team. Are we going to be are we going to have the best record in the league? Maybe not, but I think we're still going to be an elite team. We're going to figure this out for sure.
I'm going to say Argos 1.
Really, even with Dukes at quarterback, he's looked good though.
He's looked very good. He's looked very good. Rasheed Bailey out there. Chad Kelly will presumably be returning, provided he figures out his whole thing there and decides to start playing football instead of all of his off the field stuff.
Yeah.
But I still think the Argos probably coming in. I think it's between them and the Alouettes for the number 1 and 2 spot right now. But I do see the Bombers probably still topping the West. It'll be a battle with BC like it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I still like our odds a lot. I'm going to say that we got a very, very good shot at it for sure. So
yeah. And then Connor asks, what's wrong with Zach Collaros? Again, another thing I think we kind of went over. I think he's just rusty, just from the preseason. Yeah. He's still going to be Zach Collaros this year. I'm not too worried about that. I think it just showed that he hasn't thrown a football in a competitive game since November.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think it's really just not enough experience, leading up to the season. It's obviously very different when you got guys playing at 100% in front of you and you're playing against a very good team. And he still did look like himself there, like I had mentioned, for a couple stretches there in that third quarter. They really did look like the Bombers that you expect to see. Obviously some poor decision making though to close out those drives, and I don't think he's going to disagree with a statement like that a couple lapses in judgment, kind of trying to force the long ball, and also some that mixed with some less than ideal play calling was probably the reason why he didn't look quite like himself. That being said, I did check the box score afterwards. He still threw for 200 yards.
Yeah, the stats
he didn't have
still not horrible.
No, like you forget that there's people in lots substantially
worse quarterbacks.
substantially worse positions.
Yeah. God knows we've had worse quarterbacks in Winnipeg than Zach Collaros was in game 1.
We had a much worse quarterback who's currently our on staff, and as much as I love Buck Pierce, he had some great games and he had some less than fantastic showings. Yeah. So Zach Collaros really is a blessing, in that sense, where he's pretty consistently fantastic, and he can have a showing like that where looks very weak, and but still, honestly, I'd say for most CFL quarterbacks, they'd be fine with a 200+ yard passing game, right?
Yeah, short answer, Zach Collaros is going to be okay. Not too worried about it.
Yeah, I'm not worried at all as well. So I think that pretty much wraps it up for this week. We appreciate you guys all tuning in, and we apologize for the delay while we figured out how to get things back up and running there. Yeah. But thank you so much to all of you who continue to support us. It means a lot. We're very excited to continue this, and we're excited to see how the rest of the summer goes for Winnipeg sports and for the account as a whole. So thank you so much all for tuning in. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week. Thanks,
guys.
Bye-bye.